If you look at the record over the last 20 years, I think a lot of energy companies are innovative. Obviously, there was Enron, which was one of the pioneers in the trading world. So I disagree that it's 20 years. I think also if you compare it to some of the other industries, such as consumer products, they're reacting very, very quickly all the time to different market needs. So there is more pressure on them to continue to develop their technologies just to keep up with the markets.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I think we'd be better off to actually compare it to the aerospace industry, where you're trying to make 1 million rivets fly in formation, and you've got the safety of all the passengers that's at stake. And so with regard to some of the innovation that we have in our industry, the safety aspects of it, the environmental aspects of it, I think we probably should compare more to the aerospace. It'd be good to get the numbers there. Other technologies, though, including computing technology, imaging technology, some of the seismic processing technologies, I think all of those, part of our slowdown in the industry is just lack of human resources. We don't have enough people. And so it's very difficult to get people to try new things when they're under so much pressure turning out product with the tools that they know how to use. It's much like going to a man that's actually out framing a home and saying, I'd like for you to switch from this hammer to this nail gun. While we know it's much more productive, it's very difficult to switch right in the middle of the job. You need training. You're going to need some different equipment in order to power it. And so to get the infrastructure in place and get the training there, I think is causing us some delay. We have a lot of pressure on the human resources in this industry today to produce because we have an insufficient number of people.
We'd be phenomenally better off if we could adopt them quicker. But the reality is that this is really basically a cutting edge of space. And it takes a long, long time. We don't have any test wells to run through. And it takes basically 2 decades to train the operators of our modern technology today. Out at MD Anderson, I'm told now that they can train someone to do brain surgery in 10 years. Using modern oilfield technology takes 20 years of training for just the technical people to know how to use it. So it would be lovely to say, let's speed it up. But until we find some way to speed it up, we should stop talking about speeding it up.
Let's go to the next portion of our program. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? Well, energy is one business where most of the time you only have one chance to get it right. And if the new technology doesn't work, well, we're talking about big costs. So how do we handle our aversion to risk? Our panel will hit on that right after this. You're watching World Energy Television. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking today about technology, where it is and where it's going. Now let's get back to our panel. There appears to be a greater sense of urgency for technologies that will decrease costs and increase yields. Matt Simmons, is there a culture of risk aversion to overcome?
You know, I don't know how the industry got so lost, because there's an urgency of creating something to get ourselves out of this awful problem of we can't grow supply. It's starting to fall. And yet at the same time, there's an urgency, preached by the oil companies. You service companies need to keep your costs down or we won't use you. And so there's a bunch of clash of words that's going to create a clash of civilization because we basically let demand get ahead of supply.
Bruce, do you have a response to what he said?
Well, I don't work at quite the same level Matt does, so let me get down more to the ground level where I'm operating. What I think we've got is in our shortage of people that John mentioned earlier, and is continue to drive our industry in a lot of ways. We're going to have to find technologies that can replace people. There's only so much we can do.
Well, first, I guess I would say that our companies, I'm not sure are that risk averse. When you go out and deep water spend between $75 and $100 million to drill a well that may be a dry hole, that's taking a lot of risk. Now, I think people are much more careful on the technology side as to what kind of risks they take because they want to make sure that the technology is proven and is going to do what it's suggested that it's going to do. But I'm not sure that it's fair to paint the industry as being an industry that is averse to taking risks. We take them all over the world every day.
In listening to that, I would say that we're a risk-averse industry. If you looked at it from a financial perspective, there's no company that I'm aware of that drills all of their wells 100%. as proprietary wells. We lay off risk just like banks lay off risk. We bring in joint ventures in these deeper water wells. Anything that has a high cost basis, we try to make sure we have 3 or 4 different partners associated with that in order to mitigate the risk there. We're very risk averse when it comes to safety. We've got such a focus on safety that we're not going to implement anything in the field. So we have some cultural elements to our industry that really keep us from attacking some things from a risk basis.
Well, I know at Apache we are very careful to deliver a return to the shareholders. And you might call that being risk averse, but I think we would call that being prudent.
I remember years ago in an operation in Indonesia, in the middle of the jungles, one of our operations guys came up and said, had a very proud record. He had a 100% success rate with his drilling. And this 20-year-old geologist that was standing next to him said, well, that just means you've been too conservative. That's the kind of approach we need.
Well, this is kind of, it's a fascinating poll question among our experts, and I think, Andy, you might have the tie-breaking vote.
I think I'd lean towards there is a risk aversion still in the industry. And it's if you look at the industry, it's heavily regulated. There's a lot of environmental issues. There's an aging infrastructure that we were talking about before. So there is this almost barrier pushing back against everybody to move into that next sector just because of the ramifications.
So what is going to drive the move toward taking those necessary risks? Is it going to be increasing competition, rising costs, security of supply, or some other factors that we haven't mentioned? Let's hear from Mike Bahorich on this one.
If you take a look at the companies in our space that existed 10 years ago, and you take a look at the list today, I think you'll see a lot of dead animals along the road. And the issue is, are companies going to continue to innovate? Are they going to continue to be on the appropriate edge of technology so that they're there tomorrow? So I think really the issue is competition, that we need to be technically astute in order to be competitive.
I think it's a combination of all those, but and including national energy policy. I think we should really be thinking hard on how we power the planet over the next 50 years as an industry, as a society. We have a lot of challenges. To me, if we're willing to tackle those challenges as a society, as an industry, and look at them from the multifaceted stakeholders in that. Yes, we have to supply energy. Yes, we have to protect the environment. Yes, we have to create the talent in our schools and education system to feed that future. So I believe that if we can bring ourselves to that type of mindset, and that's a leadership issue in our industry and in our energy policymakers.
And Matt Simmons?
We've just begun the great American driving season of the summer of 2007. And now that we're in the driving season with the lowest amount of usable gasoline stocks in U.S. history, we are hours, days, weeks, maybe a month or two away from the beginning of the greatest energy shock the world's ever had. And it'll so profoundly change all of our attitudes that I think it'll be hard to, assuming this crisis happens, I say there's only a 60 to 70% chance that it will, so that means there's a 30% chance it won't. Assuming it happens, by Labor Day we'll have a hard time remembering what the landscape looked like, just as we left Memorial Day in the summer of 2007.